Hello, and welcome back to Android Decoded. Last episode, we started talking about the differences between Android and iOS in the context of apps. This is the second of 3 videos about that topic. This time, we'll be talking about the app ecosystem. Well, what is it? The app ecosystem refers quite simply to the apps that are available in the software market, the app stores, in terms of both quality and quantity. So why so much focus on apps? Well, a phone is only as good as the apps on it. Windows 10 Mobile, for example, is a beautifully designed OS that is let down by the fact that it's still missing many essential apps, and it has a comparatively weaker app system to Android and iOS. So let's talk about the Android and iOS app ecosystem. Both OSs have well over 1 million apps in their app markets, and at this point, you'll likely find any app you use on a regular basis on both devices. There used to be a big gap in the availability of major apps on Android, but the OS has matured to the point that you'll generally find whatever you're looking for now on both systems. However, if I were to dip into opinion for a bit here, the iOS ecosystem is still superior. You might wonder why, given that Android has something like 82% of the global smartphone market share, while iOS has closer to 15%. Well, there are 3 major reasons. The first is that it's generally the first of the 2 ecosystems to get new apps, both by smaller developers and bigger companies, and also the first to receive app updates and new features. This is partly because Silicon Valley still has a bit of an Apple bias in terms of the devices they're actively using and developing for, but also because of another major reason, which is that developers make more money through iOS apps. We'll get deeper into why in a later video, but essentially, iPhone users just spend more money on apps and services than Android users, and developers thus have more of an incentive to develop for iOS. The second reason that the iOS ecosystem is somewhat superior is because of the quality of the apps themselves. This is partly because Apple is a lot stricter about what is and isn't allowed on the App Store, and require that apps follow their guidelines and design language to a much greater extent than Google does. So there's an incentive for developers to put greater efforts towards their iOS apps, because otherwise they won't be allowed in the store. It's essentially Apple's way or no entry. Meanwhile, Google isn't as strict about what is and isn't allowed on the Play Store, and doesn't as strictly obligate following material design. Anyone can make an Android app and put it up on the Play Store. In practice, what this leads to is a high number of low-quality apps on the Play Store, which either do not function very well or clash with the design language and are unpleasant to use. Fortunately, Google has been raising its quality requirements for developers, and there's starting to be a progress in closing the quality gap. What Apple does benefits the user greatly because the visual language used by the rest of their device, human interface guidelines, are then also found in all of their third-party applications, and the phone is just more pleasant to use as a result. Apple also ensures quality by offering a paid developer program in which you get even more resources to make sure your app is top-notch. Lastly, Apple's ecosystem is superior because Apple has made a great effort just to make iOS easier to code for. First of all, you're developing your app for a dozen devices, the models of the iPads and iPhones, rather than thousands of devices like on Android. In fact, since people around the world are using Android phones with vastly different specs on different versions of Android, varying screen sizes and overall different capabilities, it takes way more effort to ensure your app will run with even a majority of the devices being used out there. This is not extra effort many developers want to put in, knowing they'll be making less money on their Android app anyway. For a long time, the iPhone screen size was just 3.5 inches, and the APIs and design resources Apple provided to developers created a canvas for developers to get really creative, and this helped Apple get the edge. Secondly, a lot more developers are familiar with Objective-C, which was the iOS development language, and Swift, which is the current one, as compared to Java, which some consider not too appealing and a bit archaic. In addition, Apple's development environment, Xcode, and programming language, Swift, have been the more developer-friendly options for coding and have led to developers preferring it. The main development software for Android was Eclipse, and it was clunky to use in comparison. However, Google's new software, Android Studio, has finally provided a polished development environment for Android apps, so it's become a little easier to develop for Android. But the extra effort, time, and cost for the smaller payback still discourages many developers. This is why, on the whole, the app ecosystem on iOS is still superior at the moment, although they are closer to parity now than ever before. The app ecosystem is important to talk about because you're going to be tied to it. When you buy a premium app on the App Store, it'll be tied to your iCloud account and available for you to use on any Apple device. Similarly, buying an app or movie or a book from the Play Store will let you use it on any of your Android devices. So if you're someone with a large varied app library on any of these ecosystems, you'll have to weigh how much repaying for those apps matters to you if you're switching. At the end of the day though, any app you want to use will generally be on both ecosystems and it'll do what you want it to do. So while there's still a bit of a gap in the app ecosystems, at this point it's not something to really worry about. Well, that's all for this episode. Next time, in the last of our videos on apps, we'll be talking about Apple versus Google services. Be sure to subscribe and like if you enjoyed this video or learned something new. See you next time.